gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's May the 25th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again by Izubee Charles as we discuss the news of the day. Izubee, it is day 9, I believe, without Matt Shodell. The beat marches on. I mean, your fan club is blossoming. Damian Hernandez posts on our YouTube channel this morning. Izubee, I'm so proud of you. You've become more natural and comfortable. I can't wait to see how great you become in your lane. Go Canes. Gotta love that love, man, from Damian Hernandez. Izubee, you're becoming a legend in Matt's absence. Just like bursting into your role here on Good Morning CaneSport. So let's get right to it. Let's start this morning with a little conversation that I think is really interesting. And you wrote a story after we saw speculation that Shannon Dawson is one of the, I guess, 5 to 10 coordinators in college football that some people are identifying as a potential head coach as soon as after this season. I was kind of shocked by that, quite frankly. Yes, he had success at Houston, but this is his breakthrough job here at Miami. This is his chance to put himself on the map in the coaching profession. And I never really thought of Shannon Dawson as having already arrived. I thought of this as where he is going to have to prove himself. Izubee, I am not sure that can be done in one season. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first off, I just want to say thank you, Damian, for the kind words. You know, you're the motivation that gets me up in the mornings to film this amazing show. But kind of turning back to Shannon Dawson, yeah, I was really surprised, honestly, was just seeing, obviously, you know, we think Shannon Dawson is an awesome offensive coordinator, but you know, a head coach candidate after 1 year in Miami, that's kind of odd. There was names like Garrett Riley up there from Clemson that just came from TCU. We saw what kind of job he did at TCU. He's among that list. I think he's a top guy. And then Michigan's defensive coordinator is also on that list. But kind of this came out of right field for me. Shannon Dawson coming straight from Houston, not even coached the season at Miami yet, and saying, hey, this guy is one of the top coordinators that, you know, can potentially get a job as a head coach after year one. And obviously, you know, hearing that as a Miami fan, that's not something you want to hear. You know, your prize coordinator coming in and leaving after 1 year, kind of being like one of those prize 5-star recruits that are ones and dones. But, you know, hopefully that's not the case with, you know, Shannon Dawson. Hopefully he's around for a couple years, kind of get the ball rolling. Obviously, Miami's offense was not in the best shape last season under Josh Gaddis. And surprisingly, Josh Gaddis was on that list as well, which I thought was very, very, very odd after what he did last year at the University of Miami. But they kind of said with his track history and the guys he's coached under, and obviously Miami wasn't the best situation or best, you know, offensive showcase that he could have put up, he still is a very good coordinator in the country. Obviously, he won the Browse Award not too long ago, so they still have him high on that list. But yeah, guys like Garrett Riley, Shannon Dawson, our old friend Josh Gaddis are all on that list of, you know, potential coordinators that they can see getting a job.
Well. I'm back. People were asking where I was. Those two people who were wondering where I was. Here's what happened. Ferman tried to fire me. I found his password. I've been looking for his password and login information for a week. I've been looking for the login information. I got it. I got the login information. Now here I am. Anyway, so good morning, CaneSport. Actually, Shodell Sport. We've got a great show for you this morning. With Matt Shodell. I will be joined by Matt Shodell. I'll also have a special guest appearance by Matt Shodell. We'll be talking about how bad everything is. It's going to be great. Damn it.
What is going on?
How'd you get back on the screen?
Wait a minute.
You hacked me?
What is going on here? How did you do that?
I got your info, Bo. I got your info. You got to protect it a little bit better. Can't get rid of me so easy, Ferman.
I was in the middle of my rant, and then I just go off screen. I'm like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah, sorry, Izubee, but that, you know, I wasn't sure what time you guys were taping this morning, and I literally just logged on. I saw you both on there, so I wasn't paying attention to what you were talking about. I just said, Boom. Was the show almost over? Where are we? Am I allowed to? How do I get rid of you guys now? I can't see how to get rid of you.
I don't know, man, but I got to show you something. While you were gone, the Izubee legend started to percolate over here. This is what our buddy Damian Hernandez, who I assume is a loyal viewer of our show. Damian, thank you very much. We appreciate you waking up with us every morning. But look at how proud he is of the way Izubee has blossomed on this show in your absence, Matt. I mean,
if Damian was so proud of Izubee, he'd spell Izubee's name right. Okay.
All right, wait. We got to get this straight here because we were talking about Shannon Dawson, and it's actually a really good. So, Matt, you'll join us, okay? But just wait 1 second.
Oh, I'm hired again.
I got to move things around here. There we go. Much better. Okay.
Am I still a volunteer? Do I get paid? Do I finally get paid now?
I got to be on the left, and I can't be next to you. Okay, Listen. We're talking about Shannon Dawson, okay? Great topic. We've had a lot of good topics in your absence, Matt. This is a really good one because people are identifying Shannon Dawson as being a potential head coach as soon as after this season. And my feeling, like I was telling Izubee, is that he came to Miami. This is his job to prove himself at the top level of college football. And I'm not sure that you could do that in one season. And the other thing, Izubee brought up, Josh Gaddis is also again being mentioned like that. How in the world can Josh Gaddis have that type of stature? He is the perfect example of the way you cannot jump to conclusions with coaches. So go ahead, Matt. Welcome back. In all honesty, we're happy to have you. And
right.
Tell us what you think
about Josh Gaddis.
This whole coaching thing, becoming a head coach after one season as a coordinator at Miami.
Are we talking Dawson or Josh Gaddis? Listen,
Dawson.
Okay, Shannon Dawson. I prefer to talk about him.
Well, you could talk about Gaddis too. How about that?
Whatever. Listen, I mean,
we missed you, man. You can talk as long as you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
I saw a Yahoo headline yesterday. It said paralyzed man walks again via thought-controlled implants. And if they can do that, how come we can't find somebody who can run the Miami offense and the Miami defense really well in the same year? I mean, literally, they can make a guy who can't move his limbs walk just by putting some little implant in his brain. Why can't somebody develop an implant for a coordinator? I could be the greatest coordinator of all time if they just give me an implant. Why are they spending all their time and energy on paralyzed people? No, I think it's great that they are helping paralyzed people. But when they're done helping the paralyzed people, help the Miami coordinators. Make implants for them, because I can't, if this year is again going to be, and we'll talk about, I assume, my story at some point, but if this year's again going to be this middle of the pack that everyone's expecting, all the betting people, whatever, the so-called experts are expecting, like, I'm not interested. I just want to fast forward to when that time comes that, you can be excited about Miami football. I mean, you see all this stuff about these headlines in the Herald or whatever, that how amazing a time this is for Florida sports with the Panthers and the Heat and, the balloon team or whatever the hell they're writing about. I don't know. But, like, it's not the Miami football team. Like, that's what I care about. I understand Miami basketball had a great run. They didn't win a title, but they had a great run. I understand Miami baseball team is whatever, won 10 out of 12, and they're probably going to host a regional, yippee. But, like, I'm about Miami football. Like, that's my passion. I love baseball. I grew up playing baseball. And I love basketball. I love Jim Larinaga. I love watching that team's a lot of fun to watch. But, like, at the end of the day, Miami's a football school. And I know people always want to say, oh, it's not a football school anymore. It's a basketball school. But they're joking. They're trying to be funny. It's not funny. Like, Miami's a football school. Don't write a headline telling me that Florida sports is amazing and include Miami in that right now. Like, until Miami football's back, that's the bread and butter. Whoever writes those stories should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed to include Miami.
For Miami football to be in the conversation, quite frankly, you have to give the media access to the program, okay? And, there's not enough of that right now, okay? It's like, let's be honest. It's a big strategical flaw right now at the Miami athletic department that in in the 2 months between the end of the season and the start of spring practice, and then the end of spring practice and the start of training camp, there is minimal access to the coaches, the players, and therefore the newspapers and websites and everything. Like we have enough to write about. There's so much going on in recruiting and everything else that we do, but like not many people do, and Miami football is not on people's minds right now. And I was reading and actually an article talking about ticket sales the other day, and the season ticket sales are apparently down like 25% right now. And it's not surprising coming off a 5-win season, but they need to allow the promotion of this program way more than what they do, in my opinion. And I don't blame the writer for harping on the Panthers and the Heat right now. They're both going to be in the
right. No, I agree. But don't put Miami in there till football's back. That's all I'm saying. Like, I don't care that Miami baseball is probably going to host a regional. I don't care that the Miami basketball team made the Final Four after making the Elite Eight. I mean, they sort of should have at least made the Elite Eight again anyway. But, like, don't say South Florida sports is amazing and put the Miami Hurricanes in there until football's back. Like, don't do that disservice to the community and pretend that Miami football isn't important, because Miami won't be back in athletics, period, until the football program's back at the top, because that's really what fans want to see. I mean, it's really nice for fans to see baseball and basketball do well and whatever other sports you like at Miami, including they have a Kidditch club team. If you like Kidditch, great. But, like, it's football. It's football. Sports writers in South Florida, if they're going to write about the Heat and Panthers and how South Florida sports is amazing, don't include the University of Miami right now. Like, just don't. It's stupid. It bothers me.
You can't compare right now, no doubt about it. I mean, you could compare if you want to talk about the Final Four run. I mean, let's be honest.
Well, that's what they're doing. But, like,
that's fair. I mean, that's fair.
That's what they're doing. But
that was such a absolutely amazing, monumental accomplishment. I mean, you have to, it's fair to include that in the
conversation. That's what they're doing.
But I agree with you that things are not whole without Miami football.
But here's what I'm trying to say. Some fans treat, Miami basketball and Miami baseball like a second-class citizen. I'm not trying to do that. I probably come across like I'm doing that. But the truth is, I'm talking about the writer's perception of things and saying, the Heat's chasing a championship. The Panthers are chasing a championship. The Miami Hurricanes basketball team didn't win a championship, and that season's over. The Miami Hurricanes baseball team, they could win a championship, but they don't appear to me right now like they're going to be the national championship team. I'm sorry, baseball fans. So you're really talking about football, because if the Miami women's tennis team had won the championship, would they have mentioned that in the newspaper? Would that be why Miami's listed? I don't really understand. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. I don't understand it, because when you say University of Miami to a University of Miami fan, and you talk about sports, they're thinking football. Like, that's just where your mind goes. That's just where your mind goes.
Yep.
And that's how important it is to the city. And to make it sound like now all of a sudden football's not that important. Because that's what this made it sound like to me. Like, football's not that important. Miami's so successful just with basketball and baseball. That's all that matters when they mention that as the South Florida sports scene being amazing now. Because look at the Heat, Panthers, and Hurricanes. Like, are you kidding me, sports writer who wrote that? Like, no. Don't say that the South Florida sports scene is great at the University of Miami until football's back. That's all I'm saying.
Was it Greg Cody? I think it was Greg
Cody. Yeah, Cody.
Yeah, you're obviously not friends with him like I am.
I don't think you're friends with him either, because he wrote about you living in somebody's basement or something, right?
So if you're watching this show, please do not hold me responsible for anything that Matt Shodell says. Nothing. I grew up with Greg Cody. He and I worked together at the Miami Herald 40 years ago, okay?
Hey, Cody, Ferman told me to say that because he was too scared to say it himself, okay? He told me to say that. He sent me an email.
No. All right, listen, we got off the beaten track here. We're talking about Shannon Dawson. We're talking about the are people jumping ahead saying he's going to be a head coach as soon as after the season, and they're including Josh Gaddis on the list. To me, this is just a continuation of what I see as overreaction, impulsive decisions, enshrining people before they really accomplish anything. I'm going to get myself in trouble a little bit here, and I'm going to preface this by saying I absolutely love Cam Kinchens. Okay, he is the nicest kid in the world, great football player, should be phenomenal this year. Okay, hopefully. But what is he doing up in the rafters of the Schwartz Center next to Ed Reed and Sean Taylor? I mean, come on, man. Like, who in the world decided that Cam Kinchens, based on what he has done so far in his career, is an All-American football player in alongside people like Ed Reed and Sean Taylor? Like, and I'm not knocking Cam Kinchens. If somebody wants to make you an All-American, you don't say, no, thank you, I want to be an All-American. I'm just saying he has not accomplished 10% right now of what Ed Reed and Sean Taylor accomplished in their Miami Hurricane careers. Okay. In fact, the mistakes that he made last season directly led to 2 losses. And again, I'm not knocking Cam. To me, he is a football player in development, not an All-American, the best safety in the country already, but we're calling him the best safety in the country. We're putting him up in the rafters in the Schwartz Center. And it's great for him, and he'll be there forever, and that's awesome. But people are so quick to anoint these days. Like the Ed Reeds, the Sean Taylors, they had to earn that kind of status, guys. Izubee Charles, when he was a football player, he was trying to attain great status. Nobody said, Izubee, you're a 5-star wide receiver, when he was a 3-star wide receiver. I mean, he had to try to play his way into being a 4 or 5-star. Izubee, go ahead. Comment on this, please.
So the Cam thing, I'm not too sure about that, honestly.
Is he the best safety in the country right now? Let's be honest.
According to PFF, he's the best safety in the country. But honestly, I wouldn't say he's the best. Obviously we know if we say who the best quarterback in the country is, we're going to say Caleb Williams. I don't think it's that clear cut to say who's the best safety in the country. Cam Kinchens. Obviously, I believe he's one of the best in that top group, in that top 5, in that top 10. But I cannot fully say, hey, Cam Kinchens is the best safety. Like you said, obviously he wasn't All-American, but he obviously had some mistakes last year. He even admitted that he made some mistakes last year in that secondary, and that's something that he wanted to improve on. Kind of going with the name in the rafters things, I just feel like Miami just kind of did that honor because he's a first-team All-American. That's kind of
All-American
tradition, putting guys, up there. So I'm not going to knock him and say, oh, you can't have his name up next to, Ed Reed and Sean Taylor. But I do believe there's still room for improvement with Cam Kinchens. Obviously, like I said, first-team All-American. You can't knock him for that. A team leader. Great to see him take that next step. But I feel like this upcoming year, if he kind of has a similar season, then he can have his names up there with the Ed Reeds and Sean Taylor.
He has to have a better season.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of
he can't be making busts in the secondary that lead to losses. I mean, he is a phenomenal kid and a great player, and he works hard, probably harder than anybody on the team. He lives in the Schwartz Center. He's watching film all the time. He is trying to become great, and he probably and hopefully will be great. But, what I'm talking about is how quick people in sports today are to anoint. People want to say the Canes are back. Every time if they win a game, it's like, no, the Canes aren't back until the Canes are playing for championships. Well, like Matt talks about. It's like, there's just such a rush to judgment on people, and there's always these stories coming out about, people becoming head coaches and things like that. Most of these people that are prematurely put in head coaching jobs fail. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they fail. So I think it's an interesting story. I'm glad you did it, Izubee. I think people are going to enjoy reading it. But very interesting topic of conversation on this concept of Shannon Dawson already being tabbed as one of the top candidates in the country to become a head coach. All right, let's move on to another interesting story, kind of like a little bit of a reverse. People are picking the Miami Hurricanes to have the 6th best odds of winning the ACC this year. Guys, is this the same concept of what we've been talking about in reverse? I mean, is Miami really going into the season? I mean, they've made a lot of moves. They had a great recruiting class, brought in some decent transfers, got Tyler Van Dyke coming back. Is Miami really the 6th best team in the ACC, Matt?
Well, it's nice of you to say my name because you didn't want to ask me about Cam Kinchens. You just want to ask the new star of the show, Izubee Charles, about it. So I'm going to tell you what I think about Cam Kinchens and your ridiculous comment, okay? It was like your brain basically had a Ron DeSantis Twitter.
I watched Ed Reed and Sean Taylor. Come on, man. Let's be real. Those guys were freaking like they earned that All-American label. Like
What I was going to say was your brain had a Ron DeSantis Twitter glitch to it, because all that is in the rafters is not saying,
please.
It's not saying that Cam Kinchins is as good as Ed Reed. It's literally, like Izubee said, it's just, if you're an All-American in the AP, you get your name up there. Like it's an award. It's like saying, oh, he's the you get an award after the season for being the MVP, the best water boy, whatever. Like, that's his honor. He was an All-American. You get your name in the rafters, So I don't know why you're making a big fuss about it, but
no, I wasn't making a fuss. I was drawing an analogy.
No, you were making a fuss.
Dawson. No fuss. I love Cam Kinchins, but do I think he's the best safety in America right now? No. Do I think he's anywhere close to the other safeties that are up in those rafters, like Ed Reed and Sean Taylor? No. I'm not disrespecting Cam by saying that. I don't think that there's an analogy there.
Well, Cam Kinchins can agree or disagree on if you're disrespecting him. But anyway, as far as the odds makers, picking Miami with the sixth best odds to win the ACC, and really, honestly, they were sort of tied for sixth, so 6/7, because Pittsburgh's right there with them. What I found most interesting about it wasn't the odds, because Gary doesn't give me any money anymore since he fired me to even place bets with, so I'm not doing any betting. But they do play every single team that's ahead of them. All five of those teams, Miami has the good fortune to play this season. They made this schedule not based on, hey, let's make Miami play the best teams in the ACC. With the new system, it's just sort of the luck of the draw. And Miami certainly got the short end of the stick on that. So with that said, what's really interesting to me is when you look at those odds, you say, okay, middle of the pack in the ACC, 14 teams, basically sixth or seventh, you're middle of the pack. That's by definition. But the other odds that came out previously had Miami with the fourth most number of wins total in the ACC out of all the teams, with 7.5 over under. And so there's only 3 teams that are expected to be ahead of them in total wins for the season. So, for people like Gary who don't understand how this stuff works or why that would happen, essentially what that means is the odds makers are basically saying that Miami just made themselves a very easy non-conference schedule, but they're not a very good team. And so they could still win 8 games because they're only playing one non-conference team that's any good, which is Texas A&M, a team that they have at home, but they'll be underdogs. They already are underdogs by almost a touchdown. But so to me, and I know it sounds weird, but and I think I even put in the headline of the story, this season is to me very much, I didn't put in this headline, but I did use it in a different headline for a different story. We'll see. This season is very much to me a Mario Cristobal experiment. And sometimes experiments can take a year. Sometimes they can take 2 years. Sometimes they could take, in Gary Ferman's case, 88 years of his life to determine if they've succeeded or not. The experiment went awry in Gary's case, but hopefully in Mario's case, it will not go awry. You can look up the word awry, Gary, in the dictionary. It's spelled A-W-R-Y. And when I say it's an experiment for Mario Cristobal, what he's doing, just like when Jimmy Johnson said, hey, nobody's ever thought to use speed in football, right? He's a genius. Let's just get the fastest guys out there. Maybe we'll do well. Mario's trying to marry these two things together and essentially create something using not just the portal, but also recruiting at the same time. We've seen programs like Michigan State try to just win through the portal. We've seen a lot of teams try to win through the portal. We've also seen teams that just continue to thrive by mainly doing recruiting, right? Clemson's taken, I think, 1 total transfer this year. Georgia's, I think, taken 3. Alabama's taken 5. Miami's taken 12. Miami took 11 last year, 4 of whom I would say panned out. Not very good. 4-7 is almost what their season record was. So can Mario's experiment, which it is, of trying to win right now while still building for the future, it seems to make no sense on the surface. I mean, how can you do both? It really seems impossible because you're taking cast-offs, almost a quarter of your roster is going to be transfers over a 2-year span when you think just in terms of the 85 number. And at the same time, trying to develop young players you're bringing in as recruits, can that be a successful formula versus just spending those 3 to 5 years of just taking recruits and developing them, which was the old way of doing things when there was no transfer portal. This is sort of a new thing, a new way of doing things. It didn't really work out last year. The team honestly fell flat on its face. The experiment failed last year, but it's not a one-year experiment, right? And Mario didn't say that didn't work. We're just going to go to this, right? He's saying, I still think it can work because he's doing the exact same thing this year that he did last year. And maybe it will work because 1 year may not be a good enough sample size to see if this can work because he hasn't built the roster yet through recruiting. He had one recruiting cycle. You can't say if it's succeeded or failed based on one recruiting cycle and one failed, in my opinion, transfer cycle. So now he's trying to do it again. Maybe he'll hit better than 4 and 7 on the transfer portal this year. And this year you'll start to see, I think, some more development of the recruits from last year. And I think this class that's coming in is already showing signs of being really, really good and great down the road. They can probably, some of these guys could probably really upset Gary and get their names up in the rafters if they have decent seasons. So,
can't he go back to where he has been for the last 9 days? Do we really have to endure this?
But make no mistake about it. This is very much an experiment. This is not something, Mario likes to say, look what I did at Oregon. Look what I did at my previous stops. He never tried to do this at Oregon. He never tried to do this when he was an assistant in Alabama. He never tried to do this as a head coach.
You know what?
This is new.
In the middle on this subject. You're making great points.
This is new. It's a total experiment. It's almost like he came in and freaked out at what he actually saw he had. And he said, let's just try an experiment. And you know what? If I saw what he saw, I might have done the same thing. But if you flunk on the portal, it's going to really affect what you were trying to do in recruiting. And he's always succeeded his previous stops just with recruiting and development. And I'm hoping that this stupid, in my opinion, transfer portal thing, I don't love the transfer portal. People know that. But if it succeeds, I'll like it. But right now, I don't see it succeeding. And if that
great for basketball.
If that it's different in basketball, Gary. You only need 1 or 2 guys in the portal that hit, and you have a great team. Football's different. Great. Anyway, in football, if this portal piece of the experiment fails, my fear is it's going to negate a lot of what he is able to do and has proven he can do in recruiting. And I've been saying it over and over. I'm just trying to say it a different way. But it's to be determined.
All right. Izubee and I will agree with you that last year when you win 5 games, okay, that was not good. Okay, that's failing. Okay, no question. But you can, hello, Jay Collette, walk and chew gum in building a football roster. Taking these transfers didn't keep them from signing Francis Magoa. Okay, it didn't keep them from signing Samson Okinola. Okay, Jaden Wayne, all the other great players of the recruiting class, number 6 recruiting class in the country. Taking these transfers did not keep them from maxing out what they are able to do in traditional recruiting, nor will it this year keep them from maxing out what they're able to do in traditional recruiting. But you are correct in that in the past, whether Mario's been an assistant in Alabama or the head coach at Oregon, they built their rosters the traditional way because there was no transfer portal. Well, now there is, and everybody's using it. Look at what it's done for Florida State. So I don't think it's the transfer portal that's the problem. I think you still have to evaluate well. And I would agree with you that if you are only batting 500 or 40% or in the transfer portal in the kids you're taking and the success rate, then your evaluations need to be better. Izubee, go ahead. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just obviously with time evolving, you kind of have to evolve too. And Matt mentioned obviously with Georgia and Clemson, obviously being super heavy on relying on the recruiting classes. They've been striking top 5, top 3, top 10, top classes for since I was running around in high school trying to be a 5-star recruit. So it's just kind of obviously now the transfer portal is really, really big. Why can't you, strike gold in the transfer portal and strike gold in the, obviously high school recruiting, area? But in the case of Miami, obviously I don't know when the last time Miami had a top 10 class. So I feel like Mario kind of has to go through the portal to kind of make up for those lack of years of, sitting at the 25s and the 20s and the 15s and things like that. So I just feel like it's not, Mario really experimenting. It's kind of Mario evolving with the times. And you see how big the transfer portal is from some schools, like Gary mentioned, Florida State got, Jared Verse from Albany. Look how he turned out. Just, a guy that no one really expected to be a big guy. So, hey, maybe that one guy we don't know about in the transfer portal becomes that, first round draft pick or team leader that comes back after being projected first round draft pick. But I just feel like, Mario's kind of evolving as time goes on because, like you said with Jimmy Johnson too, no one thought, hey, we should use speed. Maybe we should use both the transfer portal and the high school portal. So I feel like this year will be a good indication of, if that recipe works, because I think Miami is one of the 6 teams in the country that both have a top 10 transfer portal class and top 10 high school recruiting class. So really, I feel like this year can kind of gauge, hey, is this a kind of, thing we should keep doing, go hard in the portal and hard in high school recruiting, or kind of focus on one side? So I think it's a good experiment in a positive way where he's kind of evolving instead of staying stagnant and trying to do things the old fashioned way.
Yeah, no doubt. Walking, chewing gum. Go ahead, man.
I was going to say, by the way, I mean, you mentioned Florida State. Like, Florida State built this program. Again, they didn't do what Mario's doing, right? They took, when they built it 2 years ago, this is what really built the building blocks for what they have this year. They took 14 transfers and only had 17 commitments because it's so hard to do both. You just don't have the numbers. Like you're saying, Gary, that, the numbers are fine. It didn't cost them any recruits. That's not true. They've
had 50 kids leave. They've had plenty of them.
Correct. So if you want to just blow up your whole roster, fine. But Florida State said, no, we're keeping our roster intact. We're only going to take 17 commitments, even though there was an unlimited numbers 2 years ago, because they didn't want to blow up their roster. And instead they just said, we're building through the transfer portal, which they did successfully. Usually it's one or the other, not both. Mario's trying to do both at the same time. It's unusual. But anyway, and the other thing is, like, I guess, Gary, can you not walk and chew gum? Do you not know how to do that? Because I'm pretty sure most people
walk and chew gum all day long.
Yeah, everybody can. So stop saying,
and I can run circles around you while I'm doing it.
So stop saying so-and-so can walk and chew gum, because it makes them sound like they're inept at their job. Like, of course they can walk and chew gum. Everybody can.
All right, well, let's walk and chew gum and talk about something else also that this morning, and we haven't talked too much about our 50-1 countdown, ranking the top 50 post-spring players. We've gone from Thomas Gore to Malik Curtis to Caleb Spencer to Ahmad Moten to Jaden Harris, Logan Sagapolo, Markeith Williams, Frank Latson, Chris Graves, Keontra Smith, Robbie Washington, Emery Williams, Ja'Cory Brown, Brashard Smith, Terry Roberts, Samson Okinola, Dylan Joyce, Jared Harrison Hunt, Jaleel Skinner, Corey Flagg, and Ray Joseph. We are sequentially taking a look at the top 50 players that we've identified post-spring. Well, today we get, to me, one of the most significant of all. And he's only number 29, but that is running back Don Chaney. And, guys, this is let's face it, Don Chaney came in with a lot of promise. And, we thought he's going to have a great career, and he's been riddled with injuries. They need him this year to step up. Citizen's probably not going to be able to play. I know they got the transfer from Nebraska, but he's got to come walk in here. He hasn't had 1 minute of practice at Miami. And, he's going to have to come in here and try to learn things very, very quickly. Don Chaney knows the offense. He participated in spring practice. They need Don Chaney to step up and be better than number 29 on the team this year. Would you agree, Izubee?
Yeah, 100%. I have to agree with that. And one thing I was going to say when you mentioned Don Chaney's name, I was going to say, when I first, started working with CaneSport and covering the Canes, you just see Don Chaney. He passes that eye test. You say, hey, this guy is a legit running back that, if obviously all this stuff off the field that happened, this guy looks like he can produce at a high level at a Power 5 school. And he has shown flashes of that. But like I said, off the field issues with him getting hurt and things like that. And you mentioned, for a guy to have that much potential and everyone can see it there, and if he just puts it all together, from him to be at number 29 is kind of, head scratching to see. Obviously, running back was a position Miami needed last year, and they dealt with a lot of injuries, including one with Chaney. So I just feel like if he can kind of just put that all together and, stay off the injury list, the little things like the accident. I don't know what that had to do with that, but just little things like that. If he can do that, I feel like Chaney could really, really be a key piece to kind of Miami's rebuilding things. He's been at Miami for 3 years now. He knows the program. He knows the culture, the reestablished culture that Mario is trying to build. So I just feel like if Chaney can kind of put everything together, he has the size, he has the skill set. Now it's just a mindset, and then if you put those three things together, I feel like Don Chaney can be a real impactful player for the Hurricanes.
Matt, you've we've been watching this Don Chaney evolution here for a couple of years now. Your thoughts on his significance going into the season?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, the Nebraska transfer, AJ Allen, and Chaney's got about 20 pounds on him. He's just a different kind of back, basically, than most of the other guys on the roster, honestly. And there's only 6 of them, and 5 of them are freshmen. Or redshirt freshman, or in the case of Don Chaney, a third-year redshirt freshman because he's been so injury-riddled. And he's a power back who gets hurt. I mean, that's just a fact. He was hurt in high school. He's been hurt every year except for one at Miami. And it's difficult to say right now if he can make it through a full season just because that's the type of runner he is. That's why he gets hurt constantly. He's a physical, bruising runner. And hopefully, my opinion is if I'm the coach of this team, I'm using him more as a power back as needed, because I feel like if he's a guy who's getting 15, 20 carries, it's just a matter of time before he's down for the year again. So you got to really pick spots for him, in my opinion. I do think he's good enough to make an impact. But you have guys that are coming in who are really, really good. I think Mark Fletcher is a guy who you use a lot, but not in the situations where he needs to be pass protecting or key situations outside of running the ball. I think he's a guy that you put in the game where you're getting the ball out quick or you're handing him the ball and just letting him go. For a true freshman who's coming in late, that's the kind of thing you just have to do nowadays. It's just a fact. Same thing with Christopher Johnson. He's to me a third down back only if he can pass protect, and he's not a first and second down guy because he's not got the weight for it. Maybe they could use him in the slot a little bit, things like that, and find a role for him. Trante Citizen, it's unfortunate he's still probably going to be hurt because he has that power element that Miami just doesn't really have from anybody else other than Fletcher and Chaney. And which brings me back to Henry Parrish. I don't want Henry Parrish to start this year. I'm sorry. I know a lot of fans out there think Henry Parrish is great and all this. I'm looking for a championship running back. I covered this team when they had Frank Gore, when they had Willis McGahee, even guys like Najee Davenport. I mean, you go down the list. I've seen great running backs here, and I'm sorry. I'm not going to lie. Like, Henry Parrish isn't those guys. Like, I'm sorry, he's not. He's not even a Roscoe Parrish to me. Like, Roscoe Parrish was wide receiver. Sorry, who am I thinking of? Who was I thinking of? There's that other running back who was on the Parrot team with Roscoe Parrish. But you guys know who I'm talking about. The light back who had a couple of really good years here. But he's not Duke Johnson either. Like, I want to find one of those backs, and I'm thinking it's probably going to be one of the freshmen, Mark Fletcher or Christopher Johnson. Hopefully something like that. AJ Allen maybe. It's a little. I know Nebraska liked him, but he was buried down the depth chart this spring for a reason, I'm assuming. So we'll have a better sense why. I assume when we see him this spring. This fall. I'm a mess. This is what happens when I'm gone for a week. I'm all over the place.
You're not doing really well here.
I'm all over the place. But someone will remember you don't know the running back I'm talking about, Gary? Who was it? Who was the running back?
I'm trying to figure out what period you're talking about.
It'll come to me. Anyway, my point is, regardless, like, I want somebody to be better than Henry Parrish. I saw Henry Parrish last year. I know Henry Parrish was the fourth team guy before he got here at Ole Miss or whatever. Like, I don't really need that. I want a guy who's going to be a superstar at running back. That's what Miami deserves. That's what Miami should have. And that's just my opinion on that. That's it. And I'm not sure I don't think Don Chaney's that either, by the way. He's not ranked in the top 10 by us for a reason. So I'm hoping that one of these guys, and this is a ranking, by the way, of guys who were here in the spring. We're not going to have Mark Fletcher on this list. We're not going to have Christopher Johnson on this list. We're not going to have Allen on this list. But I'm hoping one of those guys, one of those three guys who are freshmen or true freshmen, can just come in here and really light things up and beat out Henry Parrish. Because if Henry Parrish is a starter for game one, and I have a feeling he will be, I'm just, it just doesn't excite me. Let me put it that way.
Don Chaney will be the best running back in the country. How about that?
I hope it's true.
I'm going to annoy him. He's going to be the best running back in the country. We're going to be comparing him to Clinton Portis and Frank Gore in 6 months. Book it. I predicted it. All right, I'm losing Izubee here. We're like, we're getting off on way too many tangents. So let's take it back to the world that he resides in, and that is recruiting. And we got a story today on 4-star edge King.
Oh, here. Who? Hold on. I think I was thinking of Joe Yearby. I'm pretty sure I was thinking of Joe Yearby.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. Anyway, King Joseph Edwards Izubee. Just a continuation of recruiting. He's a 4-star edge. It's looking like he will visit Miami this fall. They're recruiting a lot of edges these days, and Miami Columbus' Dylan Russell said that he is going to be announcing his commitment this weekend. I think there's a decent chance that he's going to pick the Miami Hurricanes. And you've got so many guys on the board that Jason Taylor's recruiting, a lot of edge players, Izubee. Where do you think this guy fits in?
With King Joseph, I wouldn't say Miami's kind of one of his top schools, but he's one of those multiple guys that you mentioned Miami recruiting across the entirety of the defensive line. And I feel like that position group is what Miami's really, really focusing on this cycle. We have the, King Edward Josephs, the Dalen Russells, the Justin Scotts, the David Stones. And, if we look at the roster this year, kind of what is the biggest position, need Miami has is defensive tackle in the trenches, the big boys. And I feel like Miami is really trying to hammer that home in this 2024 class. And that's something that they're telling a lot of these recruits too at that interior defensive position. I spoke with Alex January, who's a 2024 defensive tackle from Duncansville, 6'5", 300-pound guy. And he said, one of the reasons I really like Miami is they tell me, hey, we need bodies at defensive tackle and you can come in and play early. David Papow, another guy, 4-star defensive tackle from Pennsylvania, Coach Joe Salovey, Coach Mario Cristobal saying, hey, you could come and make an impact early at Miami because that is a position that we are lacking depth at. And I feel like Miami's kind of really, really hammering on those guys. And just kind of going back to King Joseph Edwards, he visited Miami, I believe, early March, February with his mom. His mom really likes Miami. He really likes Miami. So I feel like kind of the next step for Miami is getting him back on campus, getting him around Jason Taylor, because I feel like the few interactions he had with him were very positive, and his mom always said great things about Jason Taylor. Like you always say, he's very charismatic. Who wouldn't want, Jason Taylor coaching their son or, being around a guy like that? But just to kind of wrap up the King Joseph Edwards, defensive line talk, Miami's really, really, focused on that defensive line group. I feel like especially in the interior, and then with Joseph Edwards, a guy that wants to come out to Miami again. So I feel like if they can get him back in Miami, that'll be a good, move for the Hurricanes moving forward with his recruitment.
All right. And our recruiting coverage obviously will continue through the week and through the weekend. And maybe we'll have another commit this week. We'll see what happens. So that's going to do it for this morning for Good Morning CaneSport, a.k.a. the return of Matt Shodell to this crazy world that he helps create on this show. If you like the show, like our YouTube channel, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. And more than anything, if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please join our community, join our website. Your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every single day. So for Matt Shodell and Izubee Charles, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you once again, everybody. We'll see you next time.